Speed. With every horse and gear shift, there's more. Performance. With every detail and every winglet, there's more. Luxury and power together is beautiful, but with the Maranello soul and with the passion of the beloved Tifosi, and with every bolt, with every engine start, there is more. In stunning Rosso red, this is a prancing horse. This is the greatest Ferrari. The 458 Italia. It's got a 4.5 litre V8 562 brake horsepower engine, a top speed of 198 miles per hour, and it will do 0 to 62 in 3.4 seconds. Not only is it fast, but it's beautiful too, with its shape which is partially dictated by its mid-engine layout, something of a Ferrari staple, but this wasn't supposed to be like this. Allow me to explain. I want to tell the story of Enzo Ferrari and his son Dino. Dino's legacy is right here in this 458. It's in every Ferrari that doesn't have a V12 engine. You see, Alfredo Ferrari was the golden child to Enzo's eye. He was going to be the successor to carry the torch when Enzo was no longer around. For his entire life, he was groomed all things Ferrari. Then he went to Switzerland to study mechanical engineering. It was there though that his health began to deteriorate. Dino found movement difficult and doctors didn't know what was wrong at first, and after 2 years into his engineering studies, he was forced to move back home in Modena. Dino had muscular dystrophy and his muscles were wasting away. During the time in Modena, Dino created the 750 Monza Racer and was the inspiration behind the new 1.5 litre V6 race engine. You see, Dino shared the same kind of passion that his father did, but he also wanted to share Ferrari more with the masses, reducing engine size, sourcing powertrains, and lowering costs. Dino Ferrari died on the 30th of June 1956. He was just 24 years old. Understandably, Enzo didn't take the loss particularly well. He was the heir, his son, his everything. After some time, Enzo found the perfect way to memorialize him, not just by naming a car after him, but by naming the entire brand after him, the Dino. The Dino was supposed to be the more affordable cars made by Ferrari, made to take on the Porsche 911 and so forth, but they were never going to have the full-fledged V12 engines. No, they were reserved for the Ferrari. When it came to engine layout, Enzo was hesitant about using mid-engines because he thought his customers would find them tricky to get to grips with. And after a while though, he did see some sense. In 1968, Ferrari made the very first Dino called the Dino 206 GT. It came with a mid-mounted 2-litre V6 directly influenced by Dino himself. Then came the 246 GT and then the GT6 in 1969, and finally rounded up by the 308 GT4, perhaps the most famous Ferrari V8 engine of all time. From 1973 to 1976, the 3-litre V8 powered 2+2 wore the Dino badge. And in 1976 it became the full-fat Ferrari, and thus started the tradition of mid-engined rear-wheel drive V8 prancing horses. Joined and succeeding those first two iterations was the 208 GT4, which had a 2-litre V8, and the reason for the smaller engine was because the Italian government gave tax breaks on engines 2 litres or less. Yes, this was the progressive 70s, but Ferrari had a trick up their sleeves, and that was called the turbo engine. By the turn of the 1980s, Ferrari experimented with turbocharging even more and brought in the 288 GTO, the very first supercar made by Ferrari. It was designed for Group B racing, but the series soon cancelled before Ferrari could even experience a track day. Its successor, the hugely anticipated F40, the very last Ferrari to be signed off by Enzo himself, and it was built on the whole twin-turbo supercar idea somewhat too. This car was for the future. It brought in Pininfarina to help style the car. Forget the 1980s. This F40 was for the new millennia. Then came the 328, the 348, the legendary 355, the 360, the 430, and now this, the 458 with its numerous iterations. And this all happened because of one man and his idea. In contrary to popular belief, these mid-engine specifications are really built for the consumer at large. Instead, they're built for the racetrack and for competition. What you're looking at is a 488 GT3, the evolution to the 458, and in many ways the two cars share a lot in common. Both have seen global success, but it wasn't always like that. The early 2000s saw the Gallardo and the 911 prove stiff competition against the F430 Challenger, and in pop culture that was every movie star's dream car. But Ferrari was struggling on track, and up until that point, for every one or two V8s produced at the Maranello headquarters, there was always a serious upper echelon V12. This generation was the Ferrari Enzo, named after the larger-than-life founder himself. But for its on-track counterparts, the 430, the fight was dwindling. Something had to be done. Something had to be brewing because we were all overdue a new V8 racer. Schumacher had dominated at the turn of the new decade, but all good things must come to an end, and now was the time to reignite the fighting spirit of the mid-engine supercar. It was time for the 458, and boy did it deliver.
So get up, fellas, because you've got 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 8 seconds to do. Don't take it from the Eagles, go fast. Brilliant race and timing. In that stance, it's brilliant. As he goes across, we can hear the spectators clapping as he goes across. This is going to be a fearless victory for Thomas the Scotsman. With the final spot of the brilliant Stefan Walker, trying to the battle around the outside.
As a company and as a brand, Ferrari's success that decade was nothing short of sensational. Schumacher had lifted 5 drivers' championships in Formula 1, AF Corsa 1 at Le Mans and at Daytona, followed by Raikkonen in 2007. And that was just a surface level. Ferrari were everywhere now more than ever. The simultaneous rise of the 458 grew with the development of social media and widespread internet. The Scarlet Ferrari was the icon, the background wallpaper to the very first iPhones, and it inspired a generation of motor enthusiasts. For me, the 458 is the first car I stopped and thought, wow, that is exactly the car I envisioned a Ferrari to be. It was dramatic, yet from its side profile looked as calm as a wave. It was everything that Dino wanted from a car, everything that Enzo would have wanted from a racer. This was Italy's car brand, and it was simply the greatest Ferrari.